Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sharpening Report, and today we're going to talk about how I'm done with America. I don't want anything else to do with it. There's nothing good. It was founded on just nothing, and I don't want anything to do with it. What's that sound? Who's playing that music? What is that?
British are coming to arrest our friends and take our guns. So we're in the street with
still
our
not
preacher,
good. Still not going to listen to it.
Because we know that we can't hold them long, just trying to slow them down. But when they get there, what they're looking for won't be there to be found. So the Lexington militia, we're the first to take a stand, like David and Goliath, with their muskies in their hands. If it weren't for the militia, would you and I be free today? To the British it was a dirty word, like I still hear people say.
Yeehaw! Isn't that a good song to start off with? Well, we are going to be talking to the person that actually wrote that song. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that I am Sam Johnson, of course, the host of the Sharpening Report. You can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Blog Talk, and you can find me at Twitter at Sam T. Johnston. But I also wanted to apologize for the last couple episodes because I know that a few of you may have noticed that the audio was not quite right. And that's because I was out on the road at Hear the Watchman conference, and I don't have quite the greatest equipment for that type of things. So as much as I know you all enjoyed hearing an echoey room, we got it all figured out for back in the studio work. So I wanted to say I apologize for that, but hopefully we won't have that issue anymore. And talking about Hear the Watchman, I met a lot of really great people there. I talked to Zach and Yadir, and I got to room with my good friend Taylor, who got to spend some good quality time, so I wanted to do a shout out. I met some other people, and I just appreciate all your kind words that you guys said to me. So anyway, speaking of sound and the sound quality, we are actually joined by a musician and the man who wrote that song that you heard in the intro, Ken Hall. He is part of the Oath Keepers and also founded the Patriot Music Network. So we're going to be talking all about the importance of music in our society and how we can kind of redeem that and use it as a powerful tool for the Lord. So, Ken, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Well, that song in the beginning, I know you don't even know which one I'm playing. It's great. Just trust me that it's good. And, you know, I kind of wanted to start something new today. I feel like I love just having conversations with people. And you know what goes great with a conversation is a drink. And so I think in each new episode, I'm going to try to bring a different kind of drink to the conversation. And today I brought, I don't even know if you can tell what it is, but it is a root beer float. And I know that you have something to drink as well, right? Yeah? Good. Well, we're going to be drinking and enjoying that while we talk about music. So anyway, enough dilly-dallying around. Before we get into your musical career, let's hear about your background. Where'd you come from and how'd you get involved in all this stuff?
Well, I grew up, my dad played music in honky-tonks, wrote music, actually started writing music when he was in Korea. He served in Korea, and when he got back, he continued to write music, and he played in honky tonks all as long as I can remember. And so that was my how I get interested in music. By the time I was in high school, I was playing guitar and singing and stuff. And actually, when I was 16, I was playing drums and in bands and for private parties and occasionally honky tonks and stuff for country bands. And then by the time I was graduating high school, I had a pop band, me and a couple friends, and we played, a lot of CCR and some, pop country and some rock and a little bit of everything. And then I became a Christian, and then I started writing music as a Christian and contemporary Christian music. Wrote a bunch of songs, had a couple songs that were played on local radio in Kansas City, Missouri. And I did that for a few years, played on a lot of worship teams. Then I went to work at General Motors because I did that, during the day or in the evenings and stuff. Still work full time. Did construction for, a number of years. I went to work at General Motors and met a good friend of mine named Junior. And he brought another friend of his called Charles, that a couple brothers from the hood. And we started another Christian group. And We called ourselves the Soldiers of Faith. My wife used to call us the Oreo Cookie Gang because I usually stood in the middle. So, but anyway, and I mean, we got real close, and we wrote a lot of music, sang at a lot of fairs and jails and a lot of churches and stuff like that around the Kansas City, Missouri area and surrounding areas up in St. Joe and beyond. And then my construction business that I had basically started really consuming a lot more time. I had some problems with some of the churches that we were involved in. I kind of ruffled their feathers on a couple of their pet doctrines, and now I wasn't quote anointed anymore, and didn't want me in the worship team and some other silly stuff. So, but and then over time, Junior and Charles, he had a problem with drugs and had a hard time getting off of it and stuff. And Junior got, they closed down the plant where we were working. He moved to St. Louis, and so, that kind of broke everything up as far as our group. And so I really didn't do anything for about 20 years until I joined Oath Keepers. And not too long after I joined Oath Keepers was the Bundy Ranch standoff. And I was actually packed and ready to leave. And the night before I was supposed to leave, I had a family emergency and I had to stay here. And I let the guys that I was going to go with use my car. But I'm sitting here watching all this happen, and the Lord speaks to me and says, the only thing keeping them from killing those guys is public opinion. And you need to start writing music again. And so that's how I got going again. And but now the music, I've redone a lot of the songs that I wrote back in the 80s, and at least a few of them anyway. But then most of the new stuff that I'm writing now, both originals and the parodies, are talking more about what's going on in the world around us and in our country, and dealing with issues and the ideas. There's a war of ideas going on in our country, and so it's basically I write music to try to wage that war of ideas, to help people see things from God's perspective, not only what's going on around us, but also, how, whichever direction we go, there's going to be, a natural result that comes from that direction that we take, and help walk people through the path that, that they're going down, and help them see where that's going to lead before they get there.
Yeah.
Well, they still have time to change their mind.
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of the music is about.
Mm-hmm. And you're kind of waging a war on two fronts. One on the ideas that you're putting forth in your music, but in Christian circles, music as a whole can be just people don't want to hear it. There's a lot of pushback in especially modern churches, maybe even classical churches not wanting to hear modern music, and then modern churches not wanting to go back to the basic hymns and things like that. And so that in itself, before we get too much into the political aspects, is something that I know that you speak out on a lot. And so I'd love to, especially coming from a place where you said that you kind of ruffled some feathers in the church and being able to speak out against certain aspects, where do you find yourself in that argument?
Well, and actually it was a non-denominational charismatic church, most of them that I was involved in. And so that really wasn't as much of an issue. We played, contemporary Christian music and worship music and stuff. So I didn't have that problem there. But I had it, with other, churches that, I'd reached out to and so forth, and, there's some churches that, they have this idea that certain styles of music, certain beats and so forth are demonic, in nature and so forth. And I can kind of understand where they get that from, but it's not really accurate. And secondly, there's no scriptural basis for that. There's no scriptural basis to determine what is, quote, godly music and what is not, other than the lyrics. Now, that being said, there's music that can be unproductive. There's music that can create an emotional state and so forth. It's just really not beneficial, because it contains no lyrics or anything like that can actually help you work through things. In a constant diet of just screeching and screaming in your music, not only gives you a headache, but, I personally find it difficult to see how that could actually be very productive in trying to help people, see things from God's perspective. But that's my personal opinion, so I'm not going to, as Paul said, I'm not going to take my personal opinion and make a doctrine, that this is so saith the Lord, out of it, because we don't have that authority. And so, like I talked about before, if you're going to reach a specific target audience, you're going to have to find the way, a means of doing that. And if that's what they listen to, and if that's what they want, then you better find a way to use that music if you're going to reach them. And so I don't have a problem, as Paul said, becoming all things to all people. There again, I'm not going to compromise on the message. I'm not going to compromise on character, but I'll make all kinds of compromises on style, of how I'm going to reach you.
Well, I guess so. I know. I want to talk about this a little bit because it's interesting. You see a lot of modern Christian music can be pretty watered down, and it almost creates a sense of like flaky Christianity, or it takes a lot of the spiritual elements out of it. And definitely not what you do. You take on issues head on and go deep into them, but. Do you think that's hurtful? To me, it seems hurtful, and I understand what you're saying. The lyrics still glorify God, but in the long run, is that really beneficial?
Well, glorifying God is great, but God's goal for mankind is to mold us into His image, and that means friction. Provoke one another to love and good works. It's not about make everybody feel good. And that's the issue that I have with contemporary Christian music as a whole. And not that there isn't a time and place for it. And I love, most of the contemporary Christian music. I love to listen to, all the modern stuff that my wife listens to all the time, stuff like that. And it is uplifting and it is helpful. But if that's all you listen to, you're not being challenged. And so like everything else that God created, it requires balance, because if you don't maintain a balance, you become unbalanced, and then you have problems, and it creates, weaknesses. And it creates, problems not only for yourself, but, for the world around you. Because then if you're not aware of what's going on, and if you're not actively engaged in trying to restrain the evil and the darkness, then you're not being salt. And that's the reason why the church, unfortunately, is losing the war of ideas. And has been for 3 decades, which is one of the reasons why I had so much friction in the church, because I've been trying to tell them that, for 3 decades. And we've taken it more as a hobby than realizing it's a life and death struggle. It's literally a war that's going on, and we haven't fought it like it's a war.
Yeah. Well, I am fascinated by your music path, but I know a lot of people that listen to the Sharpening Report and a lot of shows like this. They've been in that place where they have these ideas and they want to talk to the church about it, and the church doesn't want anything to do with it. They get kicked out. So I'd love to kind of dive into that a little bit more and just tell us about your experience. How did you handle that rejection from the church, and then kind of where did God take you from there? Because it can be a really painful and challenging spot when you try to tell your church, the place you've invested so much time in these ideas and you care about them, and they just say, get out of here. So how did you handle that?
Yeah, well, and a lot of times it's not that they kick you out necessarily. They just put you in the corner, tell you to sit down and shut up. You can keep giving us money, but, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not that kind of person, I've got to be involved, and I'm a doer. And so for me, it kind of got to where, I haven't been to, I've been to church off and on, for quite a while, always have been, but I haven't had a church that I've been regular at for a long time. My relationship and my fellowship became more online, and it became more with, the people that I was working with, people that I was working for, my family. I've got 5 kids and 7 grandkids, so that's a pretty decent sized community in itself.
Yeah.
Plus all of their friends that usually like to live here or spend a lot of time. And so, I haven't lacked for, fellowship, and especially, with the advent of the internet and so forth, there's always a lot of people to communicate with. A lot of great people out there. And so I haven't lacked in, I spend literally 3 to 4 or 5 hours a night at least, communicating with people, on the internet, about what's going on, about the things that we're talking about, and about Christian values and principles and so forth. And so, more than I ever did at church, by far. And I'm not against church, if I could find a church, locally that was paying attention to what's going on in the world around him and was actually actively trying to do something to stop the madness, I would be all over it.
Yeah.
I know a couple, but they're 30 miles away.
Yeah.
I've sang at some rallies and stuff in Lincoln earlier this year. The first one was in the sleet, so that was fun. But we had a pretty good turnout, and there's a pastor, down there that's a great guy, two of them actually, that, in the church in Ashland and so forth, that knows, he's a black robe, black regiment, pastor. And, so there are, a number of them out there, and it's just, it's difficult to find, some in your location. But, that, like I said, there's a lot of people online, you got to continue to stay in the Word of God. You got to continue to, pray and seek God's face, know what's going on, in the world around you. And secondly, engage as much as you can with the people around you that are enlightened, that do know what's going on, and fellowship and draw strength, from that community, because it's a growing community. Fortunately, that is growing exponentially, which frankly surprises me. 30 years ago, I was walking into a Sam's Club. And the Lord spoke to me. He says, one day you'll never be able to go into a place like this and buy anything again without the mark. And I had 5 kids. And I'm like, how am I going to provide for my family? How are we going to live? And, so it was a real rude awakening. And, I learned to hunt. Actually, my wife told me I had to go hunting the first time because my second oldest son wanted to go with my brother. And she was afraid that one of them, the boys would shoot him and they wouldn't get home. So she said, you better go with them. And so I'm out there with the shotgun walking around the field, and all these geese are flying over. I really don't feel like, shooting them until about 2 hours later when they're flying over laughing at you and landing only in the ponds where people won't let you hunt.
Oh, man.
Well, I kind of wanted to shoot something. I never lost it.
Oh, man.
The hunting for us became, survival skill training. And, I mean, now it's search and destroy. My boys' idea of hunting is hike your butt 20 miles a day, find some deer, chase them down, shoot them, and then figure out how you're going to get to them with a truck. Yes. Yeah. But so it's great. But like I said, the Lord is brought us a long way. Not only myself, but I've seen a great awakening taking place. Even within the church, and it's surprising me, especially after, Y2K, I had a dream shortly before, Y2K, the actual date or whatever, that it was going to be a big fizzle and that it was going to turn everybody off to being prepared and turn everybody off to the warnings that, that tribulation and trouble was coming. And unfortunately that was true, but, fortunately, that's turning around. And, so that is extremely encouraging, and it's easier to find fellowship now than it ever has been.
Yeah, and I no, it's not really the topic of our conversation. Is definitely about music, but I just know there's a lot of people out there that want to hear that encouraging message of you're not alone in this. Like, there's a lot of people that aren't involved in church anymore because they're just tired of the mundane, and that's what I like about your music too. Is it talks about real issues. You have one on gun control, and you sing about what matters, and so I really enjoy that. I do wonder, have you ever done any research into the tuning of the 440 and 432?
I've been listening, and I've heard some information about it, and it's kind of one of those things where I'm going to start experimenting with it. I'm an old school guy, so it took me a while to get up to speed, just like it is about Skype. But now, that being said, I mean, I'm getting real familiar with all the new hardware and software that, for music production and music recording. And, the mic that I'm using now is a Slate virtual mic that basically I can use modeling software and make it sound like, about any, $10,000, $50,000 mic that I want. And which really helps. So now you can take, a few $1,000s and you got the equivalent of what would be $1 million studio, with new software and hardware that's out. So, a lot of advancements there, and I've become real familiar with that. But, I can only absorb so much at one time, trying to keep up on everything that's going on. So a a lot of tech that I'm still trying to catch up on.
Yeah, I would love to. I'm trying to find someone who does a lot of research into the 440 and 432, because there's just so much there for people who don't know. There's a theory or fact, depending on who you ask, that the natural frequency of the world is 432, and that's what our instruments used to be tuned at until Nazi Germany came along and Operation Paperclip and kind of flooded the Western cultures with this 440, which is supposed to kind of go against our natural frequency just enough to make us a little more angry, a little more on edge. But anyway, we're not talking about that. It's an interesting topic that I found wonderful. So can you tell me more about Patriot Music Network? It's kind of what you started, and so just tell me, what is it?
Basically, I started a new label, and the purpose of the label is to produce music that is Christian-based, that has a Christian worldview, that talks about relevant, issues of the day, the things that are going on. You could call it red pill music. You inform people, you help people, see what's going on. You help them walk down that road to see where this is going to lead us, so that they can make an informed decision as to, who they want to become, what the ideas that are actually going to help produce peace, stability, and everything good that God has created in the world, as opposed to the ideas that lead to destruction and loneliness and pain and suffering. And, so that's kind of what, the focus of the label is going to be. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be professional. There's going to be a lot of positive music as well, a lot of encouragement. You've got to have a balance, just like I was talking about. But at the same time, that label is going to be dedicated basically to serving God and serving God's people. The other thing that, I've already got some other people that we're kind of bringing into the label that'll, be participating, and I'll be helping them with production and so forth and some of their music. And I've got a lot of other people online that are interested. Our biggest handicap right now is being able to distribute the music, being able to get it out there where people know, hear it, know it, know where to find it, and so forth. What I've been wanting to do is to try to partner with all kinds of alternative media. And by that, what I mean is, to have them literally put the music on their website for sale directly from their site. I was thinking, before, well, we'd just put links on their site and have them come to our site and purchase some music. The problem is I can't keep track of where the sales are coming from. And so I couldn't compensate them, because I want to share that revenue with those all media sources, because I want to support their mission and what they're doing as well. And so we're supporting them not only by splitting the proceeds from the music sales, but also with music that their listeners can use, to be encouraged, to be strengthened, and to use it to reach out to their friends, their family, and their community, to try to wake them up and encourage them and bring them along as well. And so that's basically, the focus of the label is we want to partner with alt media sources to have them sell the music, for direct distribution through their sites, share the revenue with those alt media sources. And because they're reaching our target audience, and so what better way, to be able to reach it. And at the same time, it helps build their ministry, which in turn, will build our ministry. And having a platform where we can reach millions of people, I can bring all kinds of artists in, because that's the difficulty for especially up and coming artists. How do you get it out there amongst the myriad, of talent there is out there and get noticed? And, so having a platform like that where we could, have distribution specifically and targeted directly at their target audience is going to attract a lot of people, and bring a lot of variety, a lot of talent. The music that I produce, literally I have everything from rap to metal. I've used some of the Five Finger Death Punch's soundtracks, and I've rewritten, new lyrics and used their music, and some of the songs. And so literally everything from metal to, hip hop and country and Spanish flavored and, everything. I've always enjoyed, just about any kind of, style of music. And so that's kind of reflected in what I do. I want to broaden that by having, people that are more adept in a lot of those, categories and a lot of those styles of music, to be able to focus on doing what they do best and bring those artists in, support them in any way I can, and build basically an alternative music industry. that's working to serve God and build his kingdom, rather than tear it down.
Well, it sounds like, when I hear about music, especially, my dad grew up in the rock and roll phase, and now I'm kind of growing up in the rap phase and the hip hop, and I see people, especially the generation prior to these big movements, are always like, man, these are straight from Satan. This type of music is straight from the devil, and it's evil, and there's no way to redeem it. And to me, it's a lot like technology. It's like, man, people are worried about like this Bitcoin and all these these new technologies that are changing the world, and people are immediately ready to label it evil and cast it off. And my thought is always, especially even with music, is like, man, if we can just get Christians to participate in this type of music to be able to redeem it, then it's not just going to be automatically evil. And so it's hard to balance the thought process between that and be like, well, I don't want to just give in because I like this type of thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Are guns from the devil?
I don't know. Are they?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people seem to think so. Yeah. Like music is a tool. Mm-hmm. Just like any other tool. Music is a tool. Now it does have a spiritual nature in itself, because it has the ability to be able to reach through your normal self-defense mechanism and reach into your heart and grab your attention. And so if you're using music as a means to grab their attention in order to promote, a godly principle, godly values, then it's a very powerful, very godly, very good tool. Regardless of the style of the music, it's just a tool to get that person to focus on the message. So at that point, like I said, it's all about the message. What is the message of the song? Because the style is nothing but a tool, just like guns, just like roofing nail gun, or saws or hammers or anything else. It's just a tool, and so it all depends upon how you use it.
Yeah, it's so weird. Music is so strange. There's nothing else in the world like it. Like you said, it has an ability to just really grasp your mind and to put it towards places that are good or evil. And you talk about, it can even go into like Satan. He was the leader of worship before he had fallen. It's so strange the way that music works, and the whole idea behind just our whole creation is vibration, and then to be able to have music. I don't know. It's just mind-blowing to me, and I find it so fascinating. Let's transition a little bit. You mentioned that you were in the Oath Keepers. Can you expand for people who don't know what it is? Can you tell me what it is, and what do you guys do?
Okay. Oath Keepers is an organization that was started by a former Army Ranger, Stuart Rhodes. He's now a constitutional attorney. He started the organization in order to remind everyone that serves in public service that they swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And to put it in Star Trek language, that's your prime directive. Anything that violates that prime directive is an illegal order. And you have a duty to ignore it, or disobey it. So anyone that's trying to get you to do something that violates the limits that the Constitution places on government, which is actually limits that the Constitution places on we the people, because we are the government. God placed those limits, on us so that we can't, write laws to impose our will on our neighbor. And, that, in other words, I can't pass a law to force everyone to read the Bible, although, I could give all kinds of justifications as to why they should, because it's destroying society and everything else, more so than taking guns away, guarantee you. So, there's all kinds of justifications, but I don't have the right, because God did not give us the authority to force other people to serve him or to believe in him or to love him. You can't, because even as much control as you think you have, and as much fear, manipulation, intimidation as you try to use to get people to submit, as soon as they think that someone's not looking, they're going to do what they want to do. So you can't force people to love each other. You have to inspire them to. And that is God's plan. God's the one that started this. He's the one that put the knowledge of the tree of good and evil in the garden, which, by the way, when you read the original translation, is the knowledge that comes from experiencing good and evil. So Adam and Eve chose to learn from the school of hard knocks. They chose to experience good and evil. Well, every one of us has made that exact same choice. God has told us, don't do this. What do we do? It'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so, that's the thing, is that, you can't force people, and God didn't intend for us to force people, and he is the one who created this environment where people have and maintains a veil of secrecy, in a sense, between us and him, so that we feel like we have the freedom to do what we want to do and get away with it if we really want to. He allows that plausible deniability intentionally and deliberately, so that people, have an opportunity to show what's really in their heart. And then he waits and he looks and he inspires and he reaches out, and then he, marks and takes note of those people that choose to love him and choose to love the truth and choose to seek him. And those are the people that are going to be invited to spend eternity with him. And so he's created this garden, as you will, to grow people, people that are molded into his image, that think like him because they want to. They share his values and they share his principles because they choose to and they want to, because they believe in the values and the principles that God himself lives by. So much so that they're willing to die for him. And that's what Jesus is coming back for.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does this music world and this oath keeper world, how do you use both of those to kind of create new things? And how do those intersect together?
Well, the music I started doing for Oath Keepers, actually. Like I said, I sing in the parades for Oath Keepers locally and at public events and so forth, for Oath Keepers. And which is a lot of the music is geared towards trying to remind everyone of the oath they swear, when they're in public service, to uphold and defend the Constitution. And the consequences of where that's going to lead if people continue to ignore that and fail, to do that. So they go hand in hand. Most of the people that are involved in Oath Keepers are Christians, which is pretty easy to understand, because you value, everything that Oath Keepers is about, everything the Constitution is about, is maintaining those God given, values and principles that our country was founded on. And so they, like I said, the two go hand in hand, as well as, one of the other things that Oath Keepers is involved in is we do training for people. We provide all kinds of training, everything from medical to survival skills, firearms training, tactical team training, radio communications, crude construction for, if you're trying to emergency, shelters and so forth. Or
you guys have a whole missile silo? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, we have a guy that's got an old school Atlas. I think it's an Atlas missile silo. Wow. That we have a range built on it now. It's got a building on it. The command center is like 40 foot underground. We're trying to get all the water out of it, so because it's the groundwater, fills up. Mm-hmm. The silo is like 200 feet deep.
Oh my gosh!
And the command center is about 40 foot below ground. And so we're working on that. We're working on the building. We're going to be hitting it hard here in a few months and doing all kinds of training. We're going to have some like weekend and 2-day events. We're going to have special guests come in and speak, and then we'll have a camp out, on-site camp out with airsoft for security, and there'll be training and there'll be scenarios that are going on, for training for security and so forth. The next day there'll be like force-on-force training with airsoft with different teams, possibly multiple teams with different unknown missions, that they have to perform or whatever. So it makes it more complicated and interesting. A lot of conflict resolution and a lot of community building, because our goal really is to build communities. Our goal is to bring as many like-minded, patriot, God-loving people together as possible, build a bond of trust, build a bond of mutual respect between them and as much law enforcement as we can get involved. And so that we have as large a community as we can, that, when things really start going south, we can work together as a team and salvage as much, of civilization as possible, and try to maintain as much peace and order as possible, even in difficult times. And more importantly, work towards the end goal, which is, to become a family, the way God intended for it to be.
And one of your songs even talks about, I wish I wrote down the name of it, talks about like the militia, and I mean, obviously it's referencing the Revolutionary War, and like the Brits are coming, but is that maybe kind of parallel idea to right. What the Oath Keepers are?
Yeah, well, in a sense, because the militia really is every able-bodied man and woman in the United States. It's not, now, yeah, you can organize, and they said that a well-organized, regulated militia is necessary to maintain freedom, in the country. But they weren't saying that that's the only quote militia or the only defense that the country has. They're just saying that we need to maintain that. They weren't talking about professional military. They weren't really for professional military because they were afraid of it becoming corrupted. And so when you read the original, it's extremely clear, and without debate, really, what they were talking about. They were talking about what most people would consider, militias in a sense, but with more organizational structure from the government when they're called upon for a specific, purpose and specific task. And so it's about everybody becoming as trained and prepared as possible, so that whenever there is a crisis, those leadership within the government that are actually going to keep their oath can call upon those citizens, and they'll come voluntarily and they'll serve, and they'll maintain as much of what God intended for the United States to be as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really cool. And so you guys are obviously fighting for to promote the right ideas, and that's what you said your music is for. So what do you think is one of the most important ideas that we continue to push that you see kind of getting trampled by even modern day music and the modern mainstream media?
Well, I think that's to some degree part of it, is that we've got this idea that, well, because we hire police, fire departments and military and so forth, that we surrender our duty, as men, to defend our family, to defend our community, and and so forth. We don't. We hire them to help us fulfill that duty. We don't surrender it. God gave that duty and that responsibility to us, and He's not surrendering it, and He's going to hold us accountable for it. And so trying to and that's in a number of the songs that I've written, that's one of the things that the ideas that I'm trying to destroy is this idea that somehow we leave everything to the professionals, and so we surrender all of our rights, and our responsibilities, to the professionals, and they become God, and that's not what God intended. It's not what the founders intended, and it's frankly not a godly, it's not a godly thing to do or a godly attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, that idea is so huge. I love that you brought that up. You see that with so many people on the right and on the left. There's so many, even Trump supporters will be like, oh, now that Trump's in office, he's the one, I elected him to take care of it. It's like, no, man, you gotta really get involved. Or even people on the left who want the government to take control of healthcare and take control of the education system. And it's like, no, we gotta really be involved and really take control of our own reality and create what we want to see. So I love those ideas that you're meshing together. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the left kind of learned from the right. I mean, we've made the same mistakes. We've tried to use government to solve social issues, like the war on drugs. I supported it most of my life. I understand now, as God has shown me, that was a two-edged sword. Not only have we made no progress whatsoever in the war on drugs, but we've corrupted our police, we've corrupted our justice system, and we've built these cartels. And our government is so corrupt because of the opportunity for them to have all these slush funds and all this stuff that is destroying, the country. And they are, and unfortunately, a segment of our government's literally become our enemy. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we, even on the right, have failed to understand that God put those limits on there for good reason, because, everything is a two-edged sword. You turn that into law, you start that precedent. It took a constitutional amendment to prohibit alcohol. Why is there no constitutional amendment to prohibit drugs?
Oh, I guess the cynic, or I don't know what the right word is, would say, well, because it didn't really work.
Yeah. But anyway, so like I said, we've violated the Constitution. We've kind of set the stage, and because we've done it and we didn't stop to think about that, not only that we didn't have the authority to do that, mm-hmm. that God restrained us from being able to do that with the Constitution, mm-hmm. But also, we haven't stopped to realize that, we've shot ourselves in the foot, and now our enemies are using that against us to try to undermine every other right and every other freedom within the Constitution.
Yeah. And then it even creates people who say, then it kind of creates this realm with people like, oh man, I don't want to be involved with those things because the government is control, so I'm just going to run away and not be involved anymore. And then again, at least what we open the show with is these tools that can be used for good are no longer being used for good because Christians are running away because they're afraid that they're going to be used for evil. So right. I definitely agree. So we got a good period of time left. What else is been on your mind or on your heart lately that you feel that's been really important that we just need to get out to people?
I think, like I said, my biggest concern right now is, we've always got threats coming from every direction, and we have a lot of serious threats now. I'm a little concerned that we're running out of time. So my biggest concern, like I said, is to try to build as much of a community as possible, as quickly as possible. And in terms of, like, from the alt media standpoint, obviously they're trying to shut us down. Trump hopefully is going to step in and try to do something, but there again, how much can he really do? How much of it, will it be blocked? Okay, so he writes executive orders. Okay, they're going to get a federal judge to nullify it. So we're going to be continuing to fight that battle on and on and on. We have to try to build an alternative, social media platforms, which, with Gab and Minds and some of the others that are out there, we have to build an alternative network of patriots that support one another, like so many other communities, like the Mennonites and even, Muslims and so forth. They support their community. They buy within their community, because they realize that by doing that, they're building their own base. They're building their own, religion and strengthening their own religion. We've got to learn, the mistakes that we've made in the past, and we've got to start doing the same thing. We've got to have to build a network of people that support all of the other, patriots and all the other groups that are around, that are fighting for the same thing and that are effective at helping to fight in the war of ideas and wake people up.
Yeah. What have you ran into any roadblocks trying to set up this Patriot Music Network?
Well, as far as censorship, I'm in Facebook jail more than I'm out. Yeah.
Oh no!
You probably nobody sees me on Twitter hardly anymore, and even SoundCloud. If I post links from my music on SoundCloud, and I've got all kinds of pictures now. If someone clicks on the link and you go there and it says, "Oops, can't find the page," or that track has been deleted. While I'm listening to it on another page open in the browser, and so I'm getting censored big time. I can even track it from my stats. They started a little over 2 years ago. I caught their attention, and now they're really clamping down. Over the last couple of weeks or so. When I first started posting music, I'd go into maybe 5 or 10 Facebook groups and post a song, and I'd get 350 to 450 plays on that song that night. Now I'm lucky to get 20 or 30, and that's on a good day at Facebook. And, so yeah, they're censoring everyone, big time in a lot of different ways. And I even have people, I think, messing with my email. I've sent a lot of emails that people never got. I've talked to them in person, and they said they never received them. And so I think we're getting a lot of censorship that they've been experimenting with and stuff for a long time. And I think it's only, time before they really start clamping down, even more than they are right now.
Yeah, and I think music is a great way to try to combat that, because you get a catchy song, and a couple of your songs are really good. Like the one I played at the beginning, again, you don't know which one it is, but it is catchy, and that way to promote ideas, and like you said at the beginning, again, you get to certain different groups of people who listen to different types of music. It just draws people in. It kind of can defeat that censorship. So I think that's a really bright move to get different ideas out there, and I really respect that a lot.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So say someone wants to get involved with, let's start with Patriot Music Network. Where would they go to get involved with something like that?
If you want to, help record and so forth, you can just contact me via, email or on Facebook, or, private message me or whatever. And, I'd be glad to talk to you and find out, depending on where you are, you can either come here if you happen to be, close, or if you're somewhere else and you have access to recording equipment and so forth, you can send me the files, and we can work with that. or if you just have finished product, and you want to get it out there on the website, and as we get, get set up with some of the alternative media sites, we're going to get them posted right up on those sites, to offer for sale and so forth.
Okay. So what would be your email address so people can contact you?
Patriot Music Network at outlook.com.
Okay, good. Definitely reach out. Calling all musicians for sure, because we want to build that musician community so we can be able to create more content for more people. I'd love to showcase some of the songs in the beginning of shows and stuff like that. Have you ever thought of, because this is something that I've always wanted to do. I don't have the equipment or the musical abilities, but I would love to take popular music and do like parodies of it and insert some humor into it. I think that would be fantastic. Do you ever do any of that kind of stuff?
About 2/3 of my songs are parodies of old and new hits. Yes, but there's some humor. For instance, there's one song called Desperados. It's actually a remake of Despacito, and I had no idea what it was talking about, other than I just kind of expected it was probably some kind of slutty or whatever.
Yeah.
But I wrote all new lyrics for it, and it's got a very serious message, but it's done in a way that's pretty humorous.
Oh,
and
man.
Believe me, it took a lot of practice to be able to say a lot of those lines and stuff that fast. So I really had to work at it, but I think it came out really good, and I think it's a lot of fun.
Man,
but still has a very serious message.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to do that so bad. Maybe in the future we can talk about a couple things, because
absolutely.
I think that I love humor for that, because it, and even accompanied with music, can really just reach so many people. You catch it with a certain number of people, and it just takes off, and then all of a sudden millions of people are listening to your message. Right. So
that's kind of one of the things too that I've been moving towards too, and I've wrote a number of songs specifically for like an organization. I've got a song called Taken that I wrote for Vets for Child Rescue, and we're looking at doing a big fundraiser here in Omaha for them in November. And that's kind of one of the things too, is, someone comes up with an idea, about the subject or something that they want to get out there, or meme that they want to express through music, and they bring it to us, and we get, a collection of whoever we got together. And, within a few days, you've got a song that's ready to publish, and to go out and, speak on that issue that you're wanting to reach out to. And so that's kind of one of the things we want to do. There's an organization called Musicians Pool, which is a Christian recording studio just out east of Kansas City that my sister is involved in, that I'm getting ready to go in there and talk to them as well, and try to set up something there too, where we can use that as one of the recording places, and bring a lot of the artists in from that pool down there as well. And so, like I said, someone brings us a topic or an issue or something that they want to, an idea that they want to get out there and promote. We want to be able to put it out, within a few days, have it, and have it professional, and get it out there within a few days, whether it be original music or, parodies are pretty easy. I've kind of got an arrangement with karaoke tracks where I can use, karaoke tracks and pay a fee or whatever to use the tracks. And, so that's, a 2-day turnaround max, to do something like that. But, original music takes a couple more days to get everything recorded.
That's so cool. And then even, have you ever thought about doing anything with like video work to create music videos and things like that?
Well, I've got a few music videos, but I'm not that good at it. So I could need a lot of help. So if you're a video person out there, I need help.
Yeah. Well, hey, I am a video person, so maybe we can talk later about that type of thing. But that's what I love about creating new things, is you can get so many different people who have so many different skill sets to just work on a project together and glorify God through the whole thing. And I love that community aspect that you're building, and I think that's fantastic. That's why I wanted you on the show, is because those type of movements are what is gonna change things. That's what, if you're listening to this right now and you spend all your time alone and you're depressed and you feel like, man, how am I supposed to contribute these gifts that God's gave me? This is how. It's through things like this. It's through listening to this podcast, reaching out to Ken or reaching out to myself and being like, man, I had these gifts. How can I use them? And that's what we're going to do. We'll direct you to different people that you can use that, and you can be the man with 10 talents and use them instead of just being the one with one and burying it. Like, we don't want to do that. So I love that. I agree.
You know, and even if we don't save our country per se, you know, we know that there's hard times coming. We know that the tribulation's coming. I believe it's already started. You know, but it also talks about, you know, place in the wilderness, you know, where God, you know, keeps his people safe, even from the Antichrist, you know, and so forth. We may or may not be, you know, in that geographical area, if it's even one specific area. We don't know. But what I do know is this: no matter how difficult times, you know, are and get, if you're surrounded by people that love one another, that have each other's back, it becomes more of an adventure than, you know, torture, you know, than a nightmare. And, you know, so that's the thing. I mean, building a community where we have each other's back, no matter what we go through. We live together, we die together. You know, we die together. Oh, well, you know, hey, now we get to watch everything from a much better vantage point. So, you know, but regardless, you know, we do it together as a community, as a family, the way God intended, you know, and that's what makes life worth living.
Yeah.
You know, the mutual respect, the mutual love for one another, you know, that's what makes things, you know, that's what God looks at and he says it is good.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Absolutely. If the world's going down, we're going to go down singing with it, because it's going to be a joy. It's going to be a joy. Straight up, it's going to be awesome. That's the mentality that we need to have going into this, man. We have these gifts. God gave it to us. Let's make this an enjoyable ride. Let's create wonderful things. Oh, man. I love it so much. That's exactly it. Thank you so much for saying those things. So one more time as we wind down here at the end of our episode, where can people get a hold of if they want to join the Oath Keepers? How can they do that?
Just go to the Oath Keepers website, and there you have to, you know, I'm a associate member. I didn't serve in the military or law enforcement. I swore the oath when I joined Oath Keepers. You know, I take it very seriously. So if you want to join Oath Keepers, you go to their site. You know, if you're former military or law enforcement, you've already sworn the oath. You know, you confirm the oath. You know, you can pay, you know, monthly dues or whatever and join it. We have a lot of people that are involved in Oath Keepers that aren't official members, you know, for a lot of different reasons, including, you know, not wanting to be on the list or whatever.
Yeah. But,
you know, we don't, you know, and Stuart's always been great about that. You know, it isn't just about the organization. You know, and obviously the stronger it gets, the more support they have financially, the more they can do. But at the same time, you know, it's keeping your oath. It's you know, all of us defending and upholding the Constitution, regardless of what organization you're involved in or not. You know, and it's, you know, protecting those Christian values and principles that made America free and America great. You know, so, you know, that is the focus of Oath Keepers. But if you want to join Oath Keepers, like I said, you can go to their site. You know, you swear, you know, take the oath, you check the box. And there's a monthly fee or a yearly fee that you join, and you become a member.
Very cool. And so speaking about you more personally, the Patriot Music Network, where can people find you? How can they support you? And do you have anything coming up next that you want to tease us with?
Actually, I'm going to be singing at the American March down in San Antonio, Texas on November 9th and 10th, and for Kimberly Fletcher. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be at the Transhumanism, you know, conference with Steve Quayle here in September.
Out in Branson.
Down at Branson. But I won't be singing there. I'd love to sing there, but you know, I don't think they know who I am yet. So. But I even have a song that I wrote called "The Watchers." It's about fallen angels and stuff. But yeah, I'll be there. You can, like I say, you can, you know, send me an email. You can find me on, you know, on Facebook, private message me, you know, on Facebook or on Messenger.
Is it Kenneth Hall or Ken Hall?
Kenneth Hall.
Kenneth Hall. All right.
Yeah. Or you can also look for Soldiers of the Faith, because that's my page that's on Facebook. And I'm also on Gab and Minds.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, people, definitely reach out. If you have gifts, especially in the music world, definitely reach out, because that's how we're going to change it. We got to create more content and more things for people to enjoy and to glorify God through those things. So we have to do those things. Ken Hall, thank you so much for coming on the Sharpening Report. I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. Enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. And that's our show this week, guys. All about creating new things. It's about being in communities locally and throughout the internet as well, and using those gifts that God gave you, because every person God created has a gift. And if you think you're sitting there, I don't have any gifts, well, you're kind of insulting God a little bit, don't you think? Because he gave you some gifts. He made you who you are, and you have to use them, because that's what he wants you to do. Got to be the person with 10 talents so you can double that for the glory of God. Don't bury it in the sand. Be unique, step out in faith, and have no fear, because as evil comes at us and tries to take us down, we're just going to be singing away and having a good old time, because we have that love of Christ and that community around us, because that's what God designed us for, and that's how it's going to be. So guys, I'm not going to ask you to like, subscribe, or share, but you know I appreciate it if you do. I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope that you have a great week. I'm never going to drive anywhere with you, ever. Perfect.
And I found a great way to evangelize people, too, though. You know, because I would, have my Hebrew Greek Key Study Bible, and I'm driving, the guys that work for me, and they're in the van with me. We're driving back and forth from Kansas City to Omaha. And I'm turning around and talking to them, and they're talking about the scriptures and stuff like this, all the way up there from Kansas City to Omaha. They got real serious about their relationship with God.
Oh my God. That's true.
Hey, it works,
Well done. Well done.